We're starting with tonight's show in just a second, but we want to remind our audience tonight is nearing the end of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. The dialogue would be derelict in our duties if we did not take time out to mention this. I live in Lauderhill, right behind the Lauderhill City Hall, and they are real big about a big pink out. Wearing a pink shirt tonight. Breast cancer in 2022 was the cause of the death of 42,000 Americans, 500 of them being males, and worldwide 670,000 people died from breast cancer. Some of the known people that we've known over the years that have left us due to breast cancer has been the songbird herself, Miss Minnie Riperton, the very comedic angel. She played Christy on the TV series, Miss Suzanne Summers, and there have been others. Gratefully, thankfully, some of the known survivors today that are still with us that have been diagnosed were Christine Applegate, Cheryl Crow, Robin Roberts, and Wanda Sykes. Those were just a few that have been mentioned. But ladies, men, please don't play around. Get all of the tests that you need to get. If you see anything abnormal, lumps, anything of those sorts, please go immediately and be tested. We don't want you to become one of these statistics of breast cancer. Let me say, in the people of color community, breast cancer has a larger effect, a larger number of victims. So please, cancer detection early is cancer detection survival. Breast cancer survival, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, the dialogue honors all of those who are looking out for their health on this commemoration. Listen, tonight, let me do this like we normally do. It's Monday night. It's a little after 8 p.m. Facebook, YouTube Live. We're so grateful for all of you all who are joining us tonight. Dialogue started 4 years ago. Man in his man cave during the lonely days of the pandemic took a Facebook Live camera, put it on himself. Madam producer is his daughter. She said, "Dad, we can do you better than that." And that's exactly what has happened. And so 4 years later, the dialogue is still here because of people like you, and thankful for the Go Giga team that helped to allow us to come into your household every week. We do this every week, 8 o'clock Monday night. We only miss a few weeks. We'll either there's a takeover by the team of Go Giga, and man, are they funny, or we'll do a rebroadcast at one of our more popular shows. Dialogue with Dozie. We're so grateful to have you here. Listen, on last week, we did a show that asked, what does America's fascination with Donald Trump say about this nation? And the intent of the show was to talk about America, the 47, the 48%, whatever the numbers are today, who have pledged and are going to vote for the former president. And then the way we did it, we had a guest, Miss Ingrid. She was very kind to come on and join us. And we did not bring on any guests. We just brought her on. It was yours truly's intent, and I think I pretty well held that according to the producers. It was my intent to just act as a moderator, put the topics out there, solicit discussion from her and our audience. And you guys were so beautiful to interact with us throughout. And when things got a little outlandish, I may have gotten in and spoken to kind of represent the other side to bring fair and balance. We began by talking about, because the former president has a record. I don't mean a criminal record. We all know about those 34 felonies that exist in his life, but he has a record as a one-term president. And so we talked about his record politically. We talked about how is he morally, and we listed the Times of India had 72,000 known lies, that fact check lies that he told. Some of them were repeated that he had told. We talked about his legal issues, not the indictment, but the conviction, 34 felony counts. We talked about the other 3 cases that are pending. We talked about the legal judgment of a judge that found him liable in the amount of $500 million that he has had to pay to court, pay to a victim for sexually abusing her. He was declared a rapist by a judge in court. And we talked about those legal issues. Then we spoke about, we went on down to, we ended up, where was he on the, we talked about his economic record, his record with America's healthcare during the pandemic. And the question again was not to talk about the former president, but to talk about America's fascination with him, as he is in a just about a dead heat tie in this year's presidential election. Remember, you got to vote next Tuesday. We won't tell you how to vote. We may kind of hint, but we want you to go and vote if you haven't already voted. In our state, early voting is throughout the balance of this week, and we're asking you to go and vote. Vote by all means. If you miss that date, then vote on election day. And my guest, my beloved guest, and I'm so grateful for her. She came on she came on for us, and my intention was to the editorial intention of the show was to ask about America's, and she did a great job of deflecting. She deflected to the current president, President Biden. She deflected quite a bit to Kamala Harris. She even brought in President Obama in some of her deflections. And again, the question, I'll repeat, was not about the former president. It was about, what does this say about America's infatuation with him, having laid out all of those issues that not many presidents would have survived. Particularly, do you all think President Obama would have survived the things that the 45th president of the United States has survived? I would venture to say absolutely not. So what I didn't get to do at the end of the show was to have a wrap up. We were fighting time. Our production team was so great with us with time. So I missed that, and I want to do that before we go into tonight's brilliant topic. And it would just simply say this: for this former president and current presidential candidate to be in a dead heat with the credible candidate, some people have labeled them the prosecutor and the convict. For them to be in a dead heat, one gives a record, and they both have records. One talks about what they'll do in their presidency. One does a lot of reflection and points fingers when asked the same question. I'll just sit out and say America would not tolerate that for many of its candidates. They would not tolerate the vulgarity, the profanity, we talked about the divisiveness. We went in depth on that. We talked about the utter lies. How can you trust a president who lies about little things? Suppose there was rumors of an atomic bomb having been launched, and you knew not about you hadn't gotten the proper signals over the airwaves and over the internet and so forth, and you heard about this, and your president came on TV and said it's not true, and indeed it was true. Well, when persons have issues of integrity, it makes it hard to believe them on any front. And that would not have been, that's not a standard that any president beforehand would have been able to survive. And Lord knows President Obama would not have stood a chance against that same 48% who vehemently backs the former president. You're going to hear me talk throughout the course of this show about what the tragic news conference, the tragic rally that occurred yesterday in Madison Square Garden by the whole Republican Party, the MAGA wing of the Republican Party. It was atrocious. We'll talk about that a little later. So again, the show was intended to talk about that. The attempts were made to deflect from America's liability and supporting a person like this. We asked the question, will MAGAism last after this man either is defeated on next Tuesday at the polls, or no longer, or his term would end if he got in office and left office after a 4-year term. So just in words of editorializing, I would just stretch forth on behalf of the dialogue and say absolutely not. No president would be allowed to do that. It's amazing that this man has hijacked a major political party, the Republican Party. I asked a group of dear souls this morning, did they think that the Republican Party would ever return to what it used to be when it was just a credible political party where parties differed over philosophy and ideologies? And they said, absolutely not. He has indeed hijacked it, and it will never be the same. Remember, you've heard me say many times on this show that there was a meme before Donald Trump ran for president in 2015, was elected in 2015, before he became president in 2016, there was a meme that said, that quoted President Trump as saying, if I ever wanted to be president, I would run as a Republican because they're dumb enough to elect me. And oh boy, did that ever turn out to be a prophecy. So in wrapping up last week's show, it's safe to say that we'll never know what the infatuation was. I've done a lot of research. It appears that his celebrityhood put him there. Our guest last week talked about the fact that it didn't matter that he lies just crazily. It doesn't matter that he's a convicted, he's adjudicated, but that he has lost in civil court and been termed as a sex offender by a judge, or termed rather as having committed sexual battery as a judge, that he has a judgment of $500,000. It doesn't matter that his companies has a judgment against it for illegal deals. It doesn't matter that as a landlord, he and these tendencies, these racist tendencies have continued, and divisiveness. When you hear about what happened last night, you're going to really say all of those do not matter. It's just safe to say that no other person would have been allowed to do that. And it says a lot about our nation that we thought in 2008, and it was confirmed in 2012, that we had turned the page on racism and divisivism. Thankfully, we have a choice. The choice is to go forward on next Tuesday or to go backwards to the Jim Crow in the early days of the 60s, where racism was openly rampant. Tonight's show asks the question, are black males reluctant to vote for Kamala Harris? Is that a myth or is it a fact? We're going to look at that tonight. We've heard so much about that. As the campaign winds down, as it grinds down, we're going to look at some of the things on both sides of that issue. We're going to look at the records of both. We're going to look at the records, and we're going to look comparatively at where both campaigns stand on some of the major issues affecting our people that should be voted upon. And thank you for joining us as we. I will be glad after next week. We'll probably do a little analysis on the following week, but to get back to some, we'll always be political, but we just thought it would have been not consistent with our mission as a journalistic outreach to have not covered this election as thoroughly as possible. And that's what we have really concentrated on last week, tonight, and next week. We're going to do a deep dive on Florida's amendments and Project 2025. So what's been happening is that the news media has led the charges in saying that Vice President Kamala Harris is very much slipping amongst black males in the polls, and that she rates very lowly. And remember, she only became the presidential candidate back in July, near mid-July, just a mere few weeks before the Democratic convention. She has not been running for 2 years as campaigns kind of grind into effect, or the last year. She assumed that mantle and was nominated. And so she kind of got a late start. But one of the things that has been said is that, and the news media has done a job on propagating that black males will not support her. We're going to look at some videos, and we're going to consider some of these things. One of the things that I have done is that I have interviewed various fractions, various sects of black males, across age demographics, various political ideologies, and we're going to talk about that also. And I've kind of got a mixed bag. The theme goes out, and you're going to see it in one of the videos, is just because she's black does not mean that she gets automatic pass by black males. One of the things I found out is that sexism exists among black males. If that's what you can call it, if black males in 2024, when so many of them so many black females are heads of our households and have been the sole breadwinner, the persons that have raised so many of us, and yet they have led us to great successes in life. And some of these same brothers are saying that a lady should not be the head of this country. I would advise you that there were ladies who were biblical leaders in the Bible. Deborah was one. And remember King Solomon? Remember the lady who came she had heard all of the acclaim of Solomon. And so she came to visit. And when she got there, the scripture, look at the various transitions, but it says that she passed out. She lost her breath. She passed out when she saw the splendor in real time of what she had heard about of King Solomon. Her name was King Sheba. And so there were always leaders of countries in biblical times. And we're gonna look at some of the sects, SECTS, and talk about their relationship to this question. But we want to go to the first video. President Obama made a statement, and we're going to look at his video, but that's not the first one. We're going to look at the first video, and we're going to talk about it. Let's go to that video now.
I feel like those are the most important elections of our lifetimes. We've been saying that for many elections, but it has not been truer than currently. What matters the most to me is social issues, and when I compare the two of them, Donald Trump, is the one who is more aligned with the Bible, with my beliefs, in terms of abortion, in terms of transgender, in terms of school choice, in terms of values of family, all of those. That's why I'm rooting for him.
Appreciate it, man. I've decided I'm going to go for Donald Trump, and a lot of people look at me crazy when I say that. I am a black person, and a lot of people think that I'm automatically going to vote for Kamala Harris, but I think just based on policy and what America will look like in 4 years with Kamala Harris versus with Trump, I put my faith in Trump. I prefer his foreign policy, and I prefer what his plan is for the economy.
presently we're looking at all situations. We're not just looking at the Republican Party. We're not just looking at the Democratic Party. We're asking questions. We're asking questions of the independents. We're asking questions of different political philosophies. We're nuanced. We're not just one something. But one of the key things that we're all asking is, what is your black agenda? What are you going to do for black folk? Black people have been laying down, helping everyone else except for ourselves. And so everyone else gets something, but black folks don't.
Normal, yeah. Careful.
So the question is tonight, are black males reluctant to vote for Kamala Harris? Is that a myth or is it a fact? You just heard some of those brothers speak and you heard some of the questions that they laid out. And I want to really get into them. I'll be up against the break in a minute. But one of the things one of the first thing that was noted, that the first two voices that you heard were brothers that seemed like they were from the country we refer to as the motherland. And we know that some nations have a more patriarchal outlook on life, and that would be one of them. That males, it's a male-dominated, where males are looked at to be the head of house in a very strong fashion. And so that carries on even in this nation because of where those first two brothers, young brothers you heard, came from. Now you heard at the end of that clip, a young man who had brought these, was doing forums, and I observed quite a few videotapes and looked at people who brought people together. Our poster for the night showed the Vice President shaking hands with black males in what looked like a subway area or something like that, but they were lined up and she was talking to them. On yesterday evening, she was seen in areas of, I think, Pennsylvania, in a barbershop, sitting down and exchanging ideas. You're going to see on one of the videos after the break where there's a little bit more of a conversation about that. Let me tell you about the media. The media is high on propaganda. Say it again. Media is high on propaganda. Last week, I went overboard trying to be objective. When I invited our guest, Miss Ingrid, on, that was one of the promises that I gave her, and I told her that was not someone representing the other side, and it really wasn't another side, but that would not be someone with us that would be going back and forth with her. I was hoping to do that. Well, that was an attempt at being objective, but oftentimes, that's why you have MSNBC, which is more to the left. I don't know how it lines up on the screen. CNN, which is more of the middle. Newsmax and all of those guys line up on the right, with Fox being to the very far extreme. And you can see a news story on Fox at the one extreme, MSNBC at the other extreme, and you'll see almost two different events because of the way that they report on it, the slant that they give, and that slant being their orientation towards the news story. I know you all played this game where we did this in elementary school, where there was an event that was mentioned. The teacher would give like a 2-minute scenario. By the time it passed around the room, everybody had a different slant as to what they saw. Well, the news media is professional. It's a team of professionals, and they are professionalized at giving the slant, whether it be from the right or the left. They're professionalized in giving those slants. And so the way you frame a question, the way you guide a question, often lends, and some people know when they come on a various news station or network or various news outlet, they already know what's expected and they just play along with it or play into it. And so I'm not saying that's what these brothers did, but what we're really saying is, are black males reluctant to vote for Mrs. Harris, or is that something that the news media is putting out there? That's what seems to be surfacing more and more as we get closer to election day. That's what seems to be surfacing. Now, we're going to take just a second. We're going to look over, listen to, and deal with the reaction of President Obama's employing black men to step up and get involved in this race and laying out the consequences. Michelle Obama did a magnificent job as the Harris campaign this last weekend focused on reproductive rights. And for guys like me, who comes with a spiritual orientation about that subject as a whole, my eyes were open as she did a very eye-opening, a vast research into the whole issue of reproductive rights, healthcare, abortion, and the like, however you want to level it. And so again, it's how it's presented. One group says that abortion is really not about saving babies. It's about making sure that America does not become black and brown earlier than it's projected to in 2034. Another group say, yeah, it is exactly that. We don't want to be killing babies. And I think a lot of us line up on that side, but when you put everything else into it, it's deeper than just one-sided either way. So we're going to look at that. We're going to listen to, we're going to continue this conversation about Vice President's image with black males, and will they come out to support her in the polls? We'll deal with that on the other side. Your comments helped to make this show tonight. I did not bring on a guest with enough facts and enough clips and so forth, but you're the element that helps to drive this show tonight. We'll be right back to continue the conversation with you. Thank you for joining. GoGigaWorld.com. They got all of your virtual needs. I tell you, they take great care of you and they make you look good. All you got to do is go right there, GoGigaWorld.com. Contact them. They'll hook you up. They just did a major conference on this past weekend, and one of the persons coming out of the conference says that they had been gigarized because Giga had really made them look good. How can you make a guy like me look good in paint, except a major productive industry, a major production company like Go Giga makes you do it? Okay, Go Giga World. You gotta check them out. GoGigaWorld.com. They got all of your virtual, all of your web needs. They got you. The Toyas and the Marquez and team, they got you. Check them out. Listen, tonight we're continuing another episode of what we started last week. Our segment is called Boo. And the night deals with two major publications. What do we got to say about them? That's what we say. That's what we got to say. Believe it. Dozie is not the only one that's saying boo to them. It's being said about them all over the nation, all over the world. The Washington Post, who is owned by Jeff Bezos, the Amazon founder who's made his money, has originally endorsed Kamala Harris. They've done endorsements with the exception of the presidential election, with the exception of 1976 when President Carter ran. Was that right? 1976? Yeah, 76 when he ran. They have done endorsements. They had an endorsement mask up and they pulled it down because allegedly owner Bezos became fearful of Donald Trump if he gets in. I'm telling you, but I watch it, man. If he gets in office, they're fearful of just what he can do to their brand. He has major companies beyond Amazon and the Post, and they had to fear. Meanwhile, on the other spectrum, Mr. Shum, who owns the Los Angeles Times, supposedly his daughter had led an editorial team which caused them to endorse Kamala Harris. They pulled that down and would not publish them because of the same fears. Project 2025 takes us back to almost a communist state where you cannot, it deletes the tenets of democracy. You cannot state how you feel in this nation. You cannot be a free-thinking person and express it. And because of that, both of these major newspapers, one East Coast, one West Coast, withdrew their endorsements of the former Vice President Kamala Harris and did not post him. The Washington Post, I first saw this story Thursday night when a former politician out of Jacksonville posted on social media that he was withdrawing his subscription of the Washington Post because of that. And then all of the Saturday shows went in great details and great history of what happened. Guys, you are brought about to be outlets of information. There's still a First Amendment in this country that gives you, the Second Amendment gives you freedom of speech. We're asking you to stand up, be strong, be bold, and don't let a bully, orange colored bully, cause you to fear to meet that obligation of the people who look to you for journalistic integrity and journalistic leadership. Again, before the dialogue signs off with this, we want to hear from the people. What did you say about this one more time? All right, we hope we don't have to hear from that guy too often. With that, let's get back to the show. So we saw those brothers. Now, interestingly enough, when I was trying to find some good on both sides of the clip, both sides of the ledger as to whether or not Vice President Harris, if she has a real problem with black males or if it is perceived, it's according to what polls you look at and what has happened. Those on the right, the news sources on the right have been putting out that she is in the low 70s. Data that came out this morning showed that that's not true. It showed actually that she has actually exceeded in her polling for black males, that she has actually exceeded President Biden and was right there with President Obama's numbers from 2008, 2012. And so I'm telling you, the news media has a great opportunity, and they capitalize on it to shape your minds. They shape your minds from whichever perspective that they are coming from. That's why the last segment we heard the people boo these because we look to every year, whether we agree with who's endorsed or not, we agree that it's something we look to. We look to hear the factual basis for a news outlet endorsing whatever candidate that they chose to endorse. And when you wimp away from it, it speaks to everything that this country is about and everything this country is not about. And it speaks to our fears about what this country can become and hopefully and prayerfully what this country won't become if Donald Trump becomes president number 47. Okay, so we saw the past video. We saw those young men with the MAGA hats. We heard what they had to say. We saw the gentleman that has been bringing young men together to talk about. That's another thing. Young people were very enthusiastic in getting both Presidents Obama and Biden in office, and they kind of set out in 2015. And we're going to look to see. Let's see what President Obama had to say about this. Let's go to tape 2, see what President Obama has to say about this issue. for black men.
You're thinking about sitting out or even supporting somebody who has a history of denigrating you because you think that's a sign of strength, because that's what being a man is, putting women down? That's not acceptable.
So there was a lot said about President. This tape was from a couple of weeks ago when he spoke to some gentlemen in Philadelphia, and a lot of there's a religious sect, SECT, of black males in America. It's not just black males, but black male headed. And supposedly, and I have not gotten a clear fact from, I've spoken to several. One says it leans towards not endorsing a female, and the other one says absolutely not. We will not endorse a female for president. So thanks, Wayne. Thanks for those comments. That's right. Wake up. We can't fool around. We can't mess around. The stakes are too high. Okay. So after President Obama made what he thought was an admonition to a very comfortable group that he's very comfortable with, and that's black males. After he made that, he came kind of under attack. And I listened to Roland Martin because I knew I would get a good analysis of it. And Roland purported that what President Obama needed to do, instead of being maybe as heavy-handed in his admonishment, likely what he needed to have done was to point out and cause the Harris campaign to point out those things that their campaign is doing for black people, and particularly that will affect black males, just like Mrs. Obama did the other day. Ms. Michelle talked about how males will be impacted of these healthcare issues, and we're beginning to see. I was looking at TV earlier today, and there were another rash of medical emergencies because women couldn't get reproductive health care because of the other side of medical pregnant emergencies that occurred. And he said, if your wife ends up not being with you because she bleeds out, or if the complications, she comes up with septic or some of those things, and she leaves us, then me and you're going to be the one that's going to be raising your family by yourselves on one income. She did a marvelous job, incredible job of pointing all that out, and got all of our attention while stating that. So I said these things. I said that to say this. What has to happen is that the campaign has to do a deep dive like they did on that subject to let men know, black men know, that the president will be the president of the United States of America. One guy said today that the campaign is doing a great job by emphasizing certain days, things that will, the appeal of the effects of her work, her projected plans, what impact it would have on various demographics. And I thought that was an awesome strategy. She dealt with the ladies and the men about reproductive health care over the weekend, and I'm understanding that leading up into her speech on Monday night, which she's going to do outside the ellipsis right outside the White House, where 45 stood and implicitly or explicitly egged on a mob that went down to the United States Capitol and abused it and led to the death of many policemen. She's going to make a major statement, but leading up to that, they're taking various demographics and they're pointing what their policies are going to mean to those particular groups of demographics. I think that's an excellent strategy, and that's what Roland Martin said. That's what the campaign needs to do. Let me say this. The president of the United States is not the president. Obama used to say, I'm not president of the Democratic, the Republican, but I'm the president is the president of the United States of America, the 50 states. The president is the president. He's not the president of white America. He's not the president of black America. He's the president of the people who live in the United States of America. Now, some policies will affect others. You can't identify a group like black males or or Hispanic males. You can't identify because of all of the laws in place, which points out the discrimination in those. But you certainly can have policies that aim, and some of the policies that Kamala Harris has proposed will certainly affect the communities. I'll never forget the hatchet job that those two guys did. I'm not going to call their names tonight. Did on two black guys, one in the media, one in academia. What they did on President Obama, and the very minute that President Trump became president, they never said a mumbling word, not one. One of them became a victim of the Me Too movement. The other one is embarrassingly mounting a presidential campaign, all designed to take votes from Kamala Harris. How sad. Let's go to tape 3, and let's see another perspective on black males and how they feel about Kamala Harris.
Organizing and brushing up on their talking points are how these Chicago volunteers for Kamala Harris are spending their day. On weekends, the men board a bus and head to neighboring swing states to knock on doors.
Stay the course. That's what we have to do. You know, we have to just realize where our change is going to be made. It's going to be made with Kamala.
Stay out there on the ground, marching, walking, talking, knocking on the doors, involving, engaging.
But one of the biggest challenges for these black men is convincing other black men in Michigan and Wisconsin that change can be made with Harris.
The men right now are saying, even if I vote, what good is it going to do me? That's what I'm hearing in the doors.
Unlike black women, political analysts say enthusiasm for Harris among black men is lacking.
Let's talk about the fact that we've been taxpayers for a millennium, but our share of economic wealth and growth has been minute.
In response to black men voter apathy, the Harris campaign yesterday released an opportunity agenda for black men. It involves loans for small businesses and health initiatives.
A comprehensive plan that can reflect black men and that can reflect black young men with a timeline, with deliverables. That's really going to be the convincing factor for us to get into the polling booth.
Besides selling an opportunity agenda, these men say the key in the next 21 days is trying to persuade black men that change only happens if you vote for it.
And I believe that her policy proposals that she's made for black men and for the black community are going to be very, very important. But I think that the message that we have to take responsibility for our own destiny is equally important.
The men will be back on buses this weekend as they head to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Then the following weekend, a much longer road trip as they are scheduled to go to the crucial swing state of Pennsylvania.
Watch breaking news on YouTube. Subscribe to ABC7 Chicago Eyewitness News.
Now, and thank you for that, Madam Producer. Now, hey, we're excited. We got a nice viewer range right here on Facebook Live. I'm sure we're doing well over on YouTube. Okay, let me before I go to the tape, let me go to some of these. Brother Wayne Thomas, let me hear what he's saying. He's saying, "Wake up, black man." He's saying they're like a white guy with a fancy car to come into our neighborhoods and hand out hats. And oh no, don't worry about the typo. You hear that? That's the propaganda that we're talking about. That's what Wayne is saying. They allow a white guy to come into our community and to post in a fancy car and give out hats, and we jump on it. That says very little about our men. That's almost embarrassing. Okay, unfortunately, that is true. Whatever the bone is, whether it's hats, whether it's cash, whether it's tickets to performances or whatever. Some of he takes a couple of outlining rappers. And by the way, where's Jay? We don't see him campaigning for the former president during this election cycle. So I think that was a very objective. That video was a little bit dated, but it was those brothers out of Chicago, and you know Chicago has the largest aggregate by county of black African Americans, and that showed them going into the states of Wisconsin and Michigan, and to obtain the support of black males in those states, and to kind of just lay it out, kind of like what Wayne is saying to us tonight. These are things that we have to be aware of, and we have to look out for, and we have to pay attention to, and not go for the okie doke. If you remember, right after right after Kamala Harris was put forth as what she would put in a position to become the eventual Democratic nominee, that same night, Black females came together and raised an inordinate amount of money for her. I mean, within hours, the announcement came out like 4:30 Eastern time, and they were on the phone and had their calls and had organized and raised this amount of money and pledged their support and all of these swing states right then and there within hours. In less than 10 hours, they had raised a large amount of money. Black men then stepped up, led by Roland Martin. They stepped up and did the same thing. Like the next night, they raised $1 million+ in that short period of time. Now, the figures that you heard me throw out had nothing to do with the final figures. That was just the initiative that was given that night. They went on to raise minimum. White men came up with white dudes for Harris. They had white women for Harris. These demographics have come together and they jump-kicked Kamala Harris's campaign financially. And one of the things it has allowed her to do is, I got to talk about last night. It allowed her to, when the Trump campaign does something like really crazy or outlandish, it allowed them to get it out right away. They immediately began to take clips of what they said and did and made commercials almost immediately. For instance, last night in Madison Square Garden, the former president, a sellout crowd, and many of the stars of the Republican MAGA movement, even Rudy Giuliani, who had to just give up his penthouse apartment and all of those things this past week, they came together and had a vulgarity, racist, misogynistic, mudslinging fest in Madison Square Garden. They had a comedian whom they had vetted. They vetted all the material of all of the speakers. He got up and made specific, pointed comments about Hispanics. And one of the jokes, I'm not going to repeat the jokes that he told, but it had to do with the Puerto Rican population specifically. Now, I was in a conversation recently with someone about Trump and everybody, he's going to secure the border. He's going to do this for the border. Do you ever look and inspect the fact that the only border he's concerned about is the South border? How about the high-tech people with money that come here because they have money? You talk about corruption. You talk about people with power to come in here and really turn some things upside down. He never speaks about that. It's only the southern border. Who comes from the southern border? Brown people, Hispanic people, Venezuelan, Mexicans. He even points them out. Remember what he said last week? He was overheard saying while he was the president, he offered to pay for a Mexican young lady who was killed while in the service. And he made the point when he found out how much the bill was. He says, I'm not paying that amount of money for a blanking Mexican. That's your president. That's who y'all support. That's who you say he's all right. For the black men that are on the fringe, that are supporting him, that's what you get. Somebody told me, one black male told me recently, I love to know what I'm getting. At least I know he's a racist. You know what? I respect that. My dad taught me, always know what the other side is thinking. If it means you got to engage covertly, however you got to do it openly, find out what their mindset is. Then you know how to attack them. Well, you didn't have to know what Donald Trump's mindset is. I asked the question of these gentlemen that I eat with on Mondays. I asked last week, is Trump really a racist, or he just do that to appeal to his base? One man before, who was an EDD, before I could get it out my mouth, said he is racist to the core. Okay, I'm gonna leave that right there. But last night's Mudfest in Madison Square Garden was gonna take a lot of bleach to clean that place up. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. All of these racist and vulgar, they did editorially clean up one comment. They were going to refer to the vice president. I won't even insinuate the word. they were going to refer to her in a very, very negative, vulgar, back alley term, refer to her in that term. And so I'm just imploring us, open your eyes. I got about 4 minutes to talk about some positions. Let's look at some quick positions. When I got ready to put this show together, I wanted to do it myself. One of the things I wanted to do, thanks for the hard help on Facebook Live. I am so grateful and impressed with these numbers. Remember, next week, we're going to look at Project 2025. We're going to do a deep dive, and we're going to look at the Florida amendments, and we're going to do whatever tidying up, cleaning up we have to do for the election, which will be the next day. On the economy, the vice president has laid out a plan to help first-time home builders, homeowners. She has laid out a plan, and I'm scanting by it. She laid out the plan. Go to KamalaHarris.com if you want to read more about it. And go to DonaldTrump.com, I guess it is over there, if you want to hear what he has to say. All he talks about is tariffs. You know what terrorists do. Terrorists, we end up paying for terrorists because when we start charging these countries abroad monies to bring their inordinate amounts of money to bring their products here, they raise the prices. And when it comes to food products or the ability to food things that makes it possible to process foods and things, our farmers they lose money because they can't sell their things at that rate. So then the government, the money that supposedly it's making, they're taking that money to subsidize farmers. And you know that's right. Just go in and look at. Just go back and look at the statistics online. I'll have websites later on. So one side, we're about helping people with the child credit. About that, we used to have that with the child credit. That's the Harris campaign. The only thing you get out of the Trump campaign is you're here to talk about the terrorists. When it comes to the border, and I hate I'm having to rush through this. When it comes to the border, the Trump campaign is talking about deportation. It sounds good, but remember, he's not talking about people come from Scandinavia. He's not talking about the people that come from European nations. He's talking about people that are black and brown, people that he referred to as S-hole countries, meaning those countries south of us, particularly Haitians. Listen to all of the vile rhetoric he's spoken about the Haitians in Springfield, saying that they were eating dogs and cats. It helped to harm an economy that was thriving because Haitian immigrants were living there. So there was a bipartisan bill. President Biden has been most effective in working both sides of the aisle. He pulled together that bipartisan bill, and one phone call on immigration and putting more border guards at the border and putting together more judges to make quicker determinations and long-term judges. One phone call from Donald Trump, which you never heard him deny it. You heard his daughter-in-law trying to deny it. One phone call bombed it because as Kamala Harris says she's trying to find solutions. He's trying to continue problems for political gains. Let's talk about the divisiveness. If you look at one segment, you see red, yellow, black, and white, all precious in God's sight. You see that on one side. On the other side, you see predominantly a lily white group because of the divisiveness of this president. Let's talk about health. Remember when Joe Biden's health was a major issue? Look at Donald Trump's health. Remember all the crazy swing he was doing the other day? I might have a little bit more rhythm in my swing than he had. Okay, all the crazy swing he did, a 45-minute DJ Trump he was, I guess, instead of going there. Look how he's ducking the news media. Kamala Harris in the last 2 weeks is going into the lion's den and going on every forum. Even those that don't look like her, that don't sound like her, that don't think like her, she's going on all of these forums. Even to Fox News, she has gone and presented her case. Trump, on the meantime, has been counseling or denying other groups. Listen, I'm heading out of here, but we just want you to be informed. Read, be careful where you read. Read both sides if you're going to do it that way. Listen to both sides And if you have not voted, if you have not decided to vote, listen, if you are a felon, one of the things I'm having to do is go by these polling places and see what's going on in these polling places. If you are a felon, do not let Ron DeSantis's integrity police force keep you from voting. The only thing prevents you from voting if you are a convicted felon is first or second degree murder or a sex offense. Do not let him keep you from voting. Go and exercise your right. It was given to us. We voted in the state of Florida, and many other states don't prevent their felons. You paid your dues to society. Go out and vote. Wow, there was so much more I wanted to get to and cover that. We're outroing the show. Remember, next week the intention is to have Ms. Linda back on, and we want to talk more about Project 2025 and the amendments, do a deep dive, and the Supreme Court people who are up for voting. As we head out of here tonight, we just finished, and the dialogue would be remiss if we didn't miss it. We didn't do it during the heart of it, but we just passed Hispanic Awareness Month, and we want to. You see a group of famous Hispanics. We want to salute our Hispanic brothers and sisters for the contribution that you make to this nation. From all of you who do the jobs that Americans don't want to do, who if this crazy guy should get in office and start deporting people, we'll really miss. But thank you for the great contributions that you make to our society. You really make this one nation under God. You really make us a melting pot, and we thank you for in the entertainment industry, in academia, in economics, in politics, in every sphere of American life. You made great contributions, and we're so grateful for you. Thank you, Ms. Jan. We bless God for you. Dialogue with Dozie, man, it's been a ball tonight. Hey, shout out to my brother KB. He's away on assignment. Hopefully he'll be back with us pretty soon. Dialogue with Dozie. It's been a blast. Go Giga Creation, more Go Giga. We love you, Wayne, Ms. Jane, and everybody else. Those of you who gave these amazing numbers tonight, these are like the beginning days. Dialogue with Dozie. We're out of here. We love you. God bless.